gonna be. The Management Week celebration is one of the programs that UGBS organizes yearly, just to be able to provide a platform for students and faculty and industry experts to be able to engage on topical issues and pertinent issues that border around national and global issues. Indeed, this year, the Finance Department has the honor of being at the forefront of the organization of the Management Week celebration. And we are doing this under the theme, Economic Resilience for Ghanaian Households and Businesses in the Era of the Domestic Debt Exchange Program. Indeed, the University of Ghana Business School continues to play an invaluable role in academic excellence, in professional development and industry engagement. And the Management Week celebration is one of the platforms or one of the initiatives that is used to achieve this objective. For the purposes of today's program, I'm going to be your MC, and my name is Dr. Lordina Amoa. I have the pleasure of doing this with
Maria Portela Mensah.
Okay, so we're going to try our possible best to make sure that we stay on time. We value your presence very, very much. So we want you to be seated calmly and then hope that by the time you're leaving here, you're going to leave here with a lot of information, a lot of insights on the theme that we have slated for this particular day's celebration.
At this juncture, we'd like to welcome the highly esteemed Professor Aaron Ebosi to give us the opening prayer.
Thank you. Divine Father, we thank you for this morning. We thank you for your goodness for our lives. It is by your mercies that we are not consumed. It is in you that we live and move and have our being. We thank you for this, our great university, and what you are doing in this university. We thank you for our leadership, from the Vice Chancellor and the senior management to our provosts and deans. And we thank you especially for the business school. Thank you for keeping faith with us. 44 years of celebrating Management Day up till this time. We thank you for this year's Management Week and what we are going to deliberate on. We pray committing our resource persons into your hands, that you give them the wisdom and the guidance, that our gathering here will be meaningful, and the issue we are going to speak to will have implications for this country's progress, and your name will be glorified. We commit the program for the day into your hands. The MC, the chairman, and all of us, faculty and students, and invited guests. We are before you, and we pray that you will be with us from beginning to the end, so that at the end, we remember to give you glory and honor. In Jesus' name, we pray with thanksgiving. Amen.
With all due respect, let's be upstanding as we take the national anthem.
kindly take your seat. Thank you. Okay, so once again, we appreciate your presence. And for you to be here, we know that you value whatever we're going to be doing here today. And you're here for a reason. We are all here for a purpose. And it is only right for us to have the leader of this great school give us a welcome address and also introduce some of the dignitaries that we have in our midst today. So with a round of applause, kindly help me welcome the Visionary Dean of the Business School, Professor Bawole.
Thank you, Dr. Laudina. The Provost of the College of Humanities, Professor Daniel Ofori, who this morning represents the Vice Chancellor. Distinguished invited guests, provosts, deans, directors, college secretary of our college, College of Humanities, Mr. Benedict Ejay Fosu, Director of Finance, other directors, Director, Telsa Cash and Digital Transformation, the Group Chief Finance Officer, Broad Spectrum, Corporate Advisory Group members, School Management Committee members, Head of Departments, faculty, staff, students, alumni, members of the press, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm extremely glad to welcome you to the University of Ghana Business School, and I leave the welcoming to the University of Ghana to the chair for this morning's session for the 44th Management Day celebration. We thank all of you for making time to honor our invitation. The school, your school, our school, is 62 years since it became integrated into the University of Ghana as an academic faculty. And Management Week celebration, which was instituted in 1970, gives us a platform for fostering industry and academia interactions. During these events, one of our 7 departments will lead the organization and will select a relevant and topical theme consistent with the department's focus for discussion. This way, we have been able to provide thought leadership and influence policy and management practice in Ghana and beyond. Last year, our team, Accounting for Climate Change and Environmental Sustainability, our collective responsibility, offered us the opportunity to reflect on the vexed matters of climate change and the survival of the human species. This year, the theme for the celebration, which is led by the Department of Finance, is resilience of Ghanaian households and businesses in the era of Domestic Debt Exchange Program, DDEP. Invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, that the past year has been challenging for households and businesses cannot be overemphasized. The cumulative impact of significant global shocks and pre-existing domestic vulnerabilities have exposed households and businesses to severe stress. While there has been a preponderance of both academic and social discussions at a governmental and macro level relative to government debt restructuring situation, the impact on households and businesses have not attracted the same consideration in discussions. Hence, the choice of our topic in this year's celebration to help us drive the conversation towards re-examining the impact of government's domestic debt exchange program on households and businesses. We have assembled a crack team of practitioners and academics to help us do justice to this theme. Permit me to report on some important milestones that the school has chalked in the past year. As part of our vision of training world-class human resources, our school keeps making steady progress in many aspects of our mandate. I'm happy to report that the BOG, or the Bank of Ghana Chair for Finance and Economics, has now appointed the first occupant in the person of Professor Paul Imhotep Alagedede, who is a professor of finance in Wits University Business School, who is here with us today. Professor, would you want to rise up so that we can acknowledge you? So that is the first occupant of the Bank of Ghana Chair for Finance and Economics, and I'm happy that this has really happened. Thank you to my immediate past predecessor, Prof. Abo, for starting this and getting this through. Invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, our Phase 2 project, which is our iconic building next to our graduate campus building near the Presec Legon Junction, which is financed largely from IGF, is about 40% complete, and hopefully we should be commissioning this early next year. I should report that the core and shell of that project is 145 million Ghana cedis and an additional 100 million cedis for furnishing, electricals, and air conditioning, bringing the total to about 245 million Ghana cedis. Earlier this year, we launched our laptop library project where students can borrow laptops for use as part of driving the VC's digitalization agenda. And just 2 weeks ago, led by our Department of Accounting, we launched our computerized accounting software curriculum to train students on the use of major accounting platforms to facilitate their easy integration into the world of work. We thank Dr. Ernest Ofori Sapong of Special Ice Water fame for donating 30 laptops to help achieve the objectives of the program. Other donors include the Republic Bank and other private individuals, including students and teaching assistants who have donated the so far collected 50 laptops for their project. And I think we should give them a round of applause for the zeal to support the training of our next generation of managers. We have also offered tuition fees, accommodation, and stipend scholarships to 30 needy but brilliant students through the support of Access Pension through their Young Scholar program. We are continuing to add to new programs. We are continuing to add to our new programs. We are continuing to add to our programs new program offerings to meet industry demand and needs. The Department of Accounting has received GTech accreditation for 4 of 5 new MSc programs, namely Tax Policy and Finance, Forensic Accounting and Fraud Examination. I like this one because we catch all the thieves if they Public Financial Administration and Strategic Management Accounting. Also, the Department of Health Services Management has received accreditation to run our very first fully virtual MSc in Clinical Leadership and Management program. So this one, I will use it to collect dollars. So please, we invite especially our friends and alumni in the health sector to enroll in this all-important program. All departments and heads have been encouraged to follow this example and get as many of our MSc and MBA programs fully online to make sure that we can reach out to the African market. Our new innovation and incubation hub continues to make impact and has successfully produced 3 startup businesses who have gone into commercialization. One of them, Fiancra Comtech LLC, made it to the finals of the African Youth in Tourism Innovation Challenge and currently amongst the 3 winners, the 3 top winners who and the announcement of the ultimate winner will be done in September. And we have confidence that Joe, with his team, Fiancra LSC, would emerge as the winners. There are significant impacts being made through the Innovation Hub, and by the close of February this year, they have reached over 350 women across the length and breadth of the country. The uptake of innovation and commercialization activities among these is helping to put the brand of UGBS not only within small and medium enterprises, but also in households. We thank Mr. R.S Apia, the MD for Agriculture Manufacturing Group, for the funds to set up the hub. Ladies and gentlemen, I do not want to bore you, but there are several other things. You visit our website, a fresh website that we have, Adore, and pick up a few more. But as a school that is mindful of its role in the scheme of things of the University of Ghana, we have made donations to other units within the university. Between last year and this year, we have replaced 4 of our fleets, vehicles, which have gone down, and refurbished the old ones to be donated to other units within the university for on-campus run-ins to support their activities. I'm also happy to report that we have sponsored 15 staff of UG across the university to acquire new master's degree programs as our support to improving the quality of human resources within the university so we can improve service delivery. Ladies and gentlemen, I regret to announce to you, and many of you would have heard, the passing of our very hard-working former executive secretary, stroke school administrator, Mrs. Stella Dovlo, who for close to 6 years served this school diligently, as well as our very hard-working headman, David Korti, who, if you were ever in our graduate campus building, will see works throughout the day. May we observe a minute's silence in honor of these illustrious staff who have departed to eternity. May their souls rest in peace. Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, I will now have the singular honor to introduce to you our chair for today. Our chair for today is a professor of management with special research and consulting experience and interest in project management, strategic management, and business growth. He is the current and sitting provost of the College of Humanities, the college that is 70% of the University of Ghana. Earlier, he has served as the director for academic quality assurance. He has extensive experience in higher education management, has extensive experience in consulting, and has consulted for both national and international organizations, and has been at the forefront of the supervision and teaching within the University of Ghana. Our chair, who is representing the Vice Chancellor, who is not with us because of other equally important commitments, is Professor Daniel Frimpong Ofori. I also have the honor to introduce to you a few of our dignitaries who have made it to join us today. And especially interesting to have, first and foremost, let me introduce my predecessors, the former deans of the University of Ghana Business School. Maybe I start from the youngest, Professor Joshua Yindinaba Abo at the far right. And then I have the next to him in order of service, Professor Kwame Ameyao Domfe. And then to him, we have Professor Kofi Osei. And, of course, Professor Kofi Nti, whose tenure, please look at him, whose tenure saw the change in name from the School of Administration to the University of Ghana Business School. Am I not the proudest? Excited to have all the fathers back home. You are welcome. I'd also take an opportunity to introduce to you some my management team. I have Professor Albert Ahinkan, who is the head of public administration. Professor Ernest Chiniwu-Akodia, who is sitting in for the head of department for marketing and entrepreneurship. Professor Obi Bekun Damwa, head of OHRM. Oh, Atu, you didn't come up. And Professor Anthony Afodazi is downstairs. Atu, you should have joined us upstairs. He is the head of department for operations and management information systems, to come up with a lot of new programs. Thank you, Atu, for leading your team. I also have my school administrator, Mr. Pokusa Akodie, and our Dean for School of Graduate Studies, Professor Robert Osedakun, who would be one of the panelists today. Let me acknowledge the job that Professor Dakun does for us. You know, business school is the school with the largest graduate programs. So, the head of finance department, I'm sorry. So, Professor Emmanuel Sapon-Kumankuma is the head of finance department. He's in the crowd. So it's his department that is leading the organization of the Management Week. I understand why he's seated in the crowd. He wants to monitor events from a popular stand. Thank you so much for the hard work. And then we have one of our very, very committed school management committee members, Dr. Emmanuel Sarkodie, who is also the Maire Hine of Akwamu. He is a Nana, and I should say that the extent of financial and material support that we have received from Dr. Sarkodie is so immense. Please, let's put our hands together for... we're able to go to him anytime we have problems. We are able to go to... And then we have the head of accounting department entering now. Head of accounting department... Professor William Kofi. I would have noticed you because of your bald head, so don't worry, you can't hide. You can't hide. But we also have two important speakers that we invited today who would be speaking to us. We have Mr. Philip Amwating, Director for Telcel Cash and Digital Transformation. He's not here. That's Mr. Philip Amwating. Yes, Mr. Philip Amwating is... as I said, the director in charge of Telcel. If you change quickly from Vodafone to Telcel, that is my network since 1990 something, when it was called One Touch. Yeah. So I'm one of your oldest customers. Please look for me. And then we have also Mr. Sam Osil Kwatia, Group Chief Finance Officer, Broad Spectrum Limited. He is also our speaker. We have in the days right in front, the Director of Finance, Mrs. Bernice Agudu. We have the Director of HR, Mrs. Yvonne Lamte. We have the College Secretary, Mr. Benedict Fosu. And several others. Also our alumni executive from many places. So quite a lot of people, and I'll leave the rest of the introduction not for want of respect, but for time's sake, so that the rest of the introductions will be done by the MCs. but at least I can see the UTAC Women's Commissioner. Madam, please give us a wave. Thank you so much. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. And MCs, please, over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, our honored Dean and distinguished Dean. Well, it is no doubt that the University of Ghana Business School is at the forefront of business education. It is my honor to stand here before you today. As I said, my name is Maria Potela Mensah, and today I'm one of your moderators for the program. I would like to say a big thank you to Broad Spectrum for sponsoring this program. We are so honored to have you as a sponsor. And please, let's be on our feet as we take the UGBS National Anthem. Sorry, Anthem.
We believe that our anthem will continue to be sung into the years of time. At this point, our chairman has already been introduced, so the program is set on progression. At this point, we want to invite our chairman to give us his words, and I would want you to help me welcome Professor Daniel Frimpong.
Thank you. distinguished guest speakers, deans, former deans, directors, heads of departments, friends and alumni of UGBS, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. Since I'm deputizing for the VC, I think I also need to address the provost of the college. Good morning. So I read the VC's address. May I take this opportunity to once again welcome you all to the University of Ghana and to the University of Ghana Business School on the occasion of your 44th Monument Day celebration. I would like to thank all those who have joined us on this momentous occasion. I'm very grateful for your willingness to participate in this year's Monument Day celebration, which seeks to provide a thought leadership platform for public and private sector stakeholders, researchers, and policymakers to discuss topical issues and make recommendations for promoting the growth and development of our beloved country. Over the years, UGBS has worked tirelessly to shape the business environment in Ghana and beyond. Most business executives and persons in top management positions in our public organizations as well as in private organizations are products of the University of Ghana Business School. Indeed, in seeking to deliver management education that speaks to our developmental needs as a nation, UGBS has been guided by the overall vision of becoming a world-class business school, developing global leaders, having taken its cue from the broader UG vision of becoming a world-class research-intensive university. In the past decade, the multitude of shocks that have hit the Ghanaian economy, from the banking sector cleanup, the COVID-19 pandemic, the domestic debt restructuring program, aka DDEP, and the subsequent shrinking of the employment space have shown an evolving need for a paradigm shift for business schools in Ghana that are seeking to remain relevant, to fashion out ways to probe issues facing us in a manner that allows us to objectively identify challenges confronting Ghana in an open and dispassionate manner so as to learn and make progress. The Monument Day celebration is one of the key means of engaging in this kind of interaction. It has been an instrumental channel of fostering mutual interaction with experienced community practitioners on issues of critical importance for the socio-economic and political development of Ghana. This is what makes the theme for this year's Monument Day celebration, economic resilience of Ghanaian households and businesses in the era of domestic debt exchange program, especially relevant. The theme for the celebration is not only relevant and topical, but also timely to stimulate discussions on how best to tackle an issue that has become a critical concern to all Ghanaians, both directly and indirectly. An in-depth discussion of such critical issues fosters knowledge creation that provides critical mass for building financial literacy and ultimately fostering financial and economic resilience. In other words, individuals who are financially literate on relevant economic and financial issues confronting the economy have a higher chance of making good use of these economic fundamentals and information in their financing and investment decisions so that they can successfully navigate their path to financial independence. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, by reflecting on our issues and drawing lessons, Ghanaian households and businesses can build the needed resilience that allows for the navigation of unforeseen shocks that an emerging economy like Ghana faces from time to time. I therefore look forward to seeing the UGBS become more relevant as it continues to produce thought leaders whose actions impact society A UGBS that forms strong affiliations with world-renowned institutions to increase its credibility and visibility and entrench itself into the national consciousness. I cannot exhaust all of the issues, but I can say with conviction that the UGBS holds great promise to UG and Ghana as a whole, and I particularly look forward to a future where UGBS has emerged as an icon in the thought leadership world and a point of reference for all. On this note, I once again welcome you all to the University of Ghana and to the UGBS and invite you to fully participate in the 44th Management Day celebrations. Thank you for your attention.
Please, you can do it better. I would like to acknowledge the presence of some dignitaries in our midst. I'll begin with the CEO of Kama Group of Companies, now Mikado Group of Companies, Dr. Michael Ejekum Ado. And also the head of advisory of KPMG, Mr. Andy Akuto. Kindly sit and relax as we take a music interlude.
applause for them. Thank you very much for this musical interlude. As we are aware, and as most of us may have observed, in the last few years, our digital space has seen a lot of traction in terms of digitalization. And you observe that there are so many technologies that are springing up from time to time. And in line with our theme this year, we have the honor of the Director of Telecell Cash and Digital Transformation to give us his first speech on the theme that we have slated for this particular event. So if you can help me welcome with a round of applause, Mr. Philip Amwating to give us the first speech.
Good morning, everyone. Sometimes to avoid error of commission or omission, you keep it simple. So if you allow me, let me say all protocols are observed. Okay. As mentioned, my name is Philip Fofi Amwating. I'm here in the stead of my CEO, Patricia Obunai. She's supposed to have been here, but other similar engagement is keeping her somewhere. So I'm going to do the justice for her. But before that, 23 years ago, I was in this auditorium. Wow. I finished my first degree in accounting from this school, so I'm a proud alumni of this institution. The topic before us, I think we will do it together. How can we leverage fintech to enhance financial resilience for individuals and households in Ghana? And before we go into the details, I won't be that much academic, so pardon me if I start being academic. Okay. Let's first look at the importance of financial resilience. And probably the best way to do it is to find a small definition for that. Again, probably not from any textbook, so pardon me if I'm off the textbook listing. So financial resilience refers to ability of individuals and households to withstand economic shocks and maintain financial stability, especially in times of hardship. Let's contextualize this in Ghana, for instance. We all know Ghana is highly informal sector. We have only about 15% of our regular workforce earning from formal sector. We have limited access to the banking sector. So if you look at adult population of about 15 million people, roughly 4.5 million are the ones that are holding bank account. And I think not that it's understandable, but the context is that if you have bank accounts and there are difficult times, you can easily fall into these your bankers to help. But if you have a situation out of 15 million, 4.5 million are the only ones that can get to the bank when there are issues, then that is a big problem. Okay. But then the back of this issue is also the high volatility market that we operate in. Any little shock can easily throw the entire economy out of gear. And of recent times, we have seen similar issues. We can be remembered of COVID-19. For 2 weeks, government had to provide hot meals to some of the populace. And that is because without that, these people would go home without food. We also saw the banking sector clean up. A lot of our mates who were working and they were out of job. Today, some of them continue to go through difficult times. DDP is still very fresh in our minds. We remember some of our pensioners. And I think, even as we speak, some investors from the Gold Coast Fund still continue to pitch at the Ministry of Finance. This is the kind of environment that we find ourselves. Now, let's see what fintech can do in environments like this. Again, let me look into a bit of theoretical aspects of fintech. So, Ankari, one writer in 2016 said, fintech simply means riding of finance or digital cash on ICT infrastructure and delivering efficient financial system and financial services. Lee and Shine gave similar explanation. He said it creates an ecosystem where technology artifacts, humans, and policies converge to advance financial service delivery. Fintechs offer banking services to people in remote communities. Mobile banking, digital payment platforms, bridging the gap for those far from brick-and-mortar banks, offering essential services like money transfer, bill payments, and savings. I come from Nkoranza, and another village after Nkoranza. A few years ago, I used to live in Lesotho, and I had some rent income. So what was happening was that I had a permanent roaming SIM stay in Lesotho. When the people paid, they put the money onto their phone. And from Lesotho, I was able to send money to my mother in the village of Busunya. So when I talk about money transfer, bill payment, and savings, there is the real, it's a fact. It's not a matter of a story. We have Molana. She maintained that personal finance management, a vital aspect of achieving financial freedom, has been significantly enhanced by the advent of fintech tools. These tools have not only simplified budgeting, investing, spending, but also redefine wealth management and financial planning. They offer individuals the ability to oversee their income, cash flow, investment portfolio with greater ease and transparency than ever before. By integrating the advanced technology with financial services, fintech has democratized access to financial advice and risk management strategies, helping consumers navigate turbulent times with greater resilience. Previously, a purview of only affluent and privileged few. Let me move away from a bit of theoretical talk and we go into a bit of reality in Ghana. First, what is it that is driving this growth in the fintech space, especially in Ghana environment? It is purely because of the rapid growth of mobile money and digital financial services. Between 2020 to 2021, the value of transactions that were transacted on the mobile money platform grew about 58.5%. Registered users grew about 26%. Active mobile accounts within the country, just within 1 year, grew about 14.6%. You can check this from Bank of Ghana FinTech Report 2021. Who were the key drivers behind this? Primarily, these were MTN, Telecel Cash, at the time Vodafone, Airtel, and recently we have few entrants like Flutterwave, Paystack. Haptel has been there, ZPay is doing a fantastic job as well. What is causing this high adoption rate? As mentioned before, the first thing is the mobile money penetration. Today, we have more than 132% of our population having mobile phones. That is because, as I sit here, I have 2 mobile phones, and I know few people have 3. And there are others who probably would have more than that. So the penetration is growing very fast. There is also very fast growing in terms of wallet adoption. So recently, I was looking at some numbers. People who are sending money, paying merchants. And I realized that there is one particular church, and between 10 p.m. and 12 p.m., people were sending more money to this church than any other organization. So the adoption of the wallet system is helping a lot. The banks are also helping. There is integrations between banks and the mobile money wallets. So today we have what we call push and pull. You are able to easily send money from your mobile wallet to the banking wallet and vice versa. And these are all driving the trend of increasing in the adoption in the market. Not just that, I think the regulatory environment is playing its role. Bank of Ghana has set up a unit called Fintech and Innovation Department, knowing very well that traditional banking is not as straight as mobile payment system. This regulatory intervention is really helping to drive the increase of mobile money adoption. In that context, there is what we call GIPS. When it was set up, the intention was between banks. Today, it's doing what we call mobile money interoperability. And I can assure you, the amount of money that is going through the mobile money platform is more than triple what is going in between the banking platforms. I have mentioned the regulatory environment. Now, let's look at, come back to our topic of the fintech enhancing the financial resilience. I have mentioned already area of rapid transfers. In the days when we didn't have mobile financial services, if I were to send money to my mom in Koransa, it would have gone by bus. And usually it takes off around 8 p.m. It gets there the next morning, 4 a.m. And if I'm lucky and the bus gets there, then we need to go and search for my mom and give this money to. And if I'm not lucky and there are armed robbers on the road, that money is already gone. So the reality is, it's making life better. My mom is able to receive that money within a twinkle of an eye and is able to take care of the needs that she has to do at any point in time. So it's not just a matter of we, the people in the urban sector, but also the people in the rural areas. It's improving their financial standing. It's helping in terms of savings. I will tell you a small story. In Kenya, I used to live in Rwanda. That is 2013. And some of the stories that we knew was there were always a lot of fights between the husbands and the wives. Kenyan women are very, very aggressive, hardworking people. They go to the market, they sell, they come back home around 5 with the money on their clothes. And by the time they finish bathing, some of the men take the money, they go and drink, they come back home and they start fighting. When the mobile money was introduced, the immediate case study was that the fight went down significantly. And that's because before they reach home, they cash in, it goes into their mobile wallet. They come home, there is no money for the man to steal for the fight to start. So this is one use case of financial resilience when you adopt fintech. Again, the other bit is the fact that it reduces the cost of transactions. So I will touch based on some of the taxes that government introduced. We saw a dip in the mobile financial services. But the reality is that whilst I don't like it to continue, within a short time we saw it recovering. I do have friends and a house at Kasua where I usually used to send money through the mobile money. When the tax was introduced, my immediate intention was to stop it. Within 3 hours, I couldn't, because to take a car from Accra to Kasua, before you cross that river, you regret it. So I was forced to continue to do it. So it reduces the cost of transactions significantly if you adopt the fintech as a means of doing transactions. I've spoken about the push and push. Savings is another opportunity. So indirectly, when you have your money in your digital, or what we call fintech, you're already saving. When the money is closer to you in the form of cash, it's easier to spend than when it is in that device. And thankfully, by some of the regulatory intervention, the Bank of Ghana requires that once the money is in the wallet, on quarterly basis, you should pay interest to the owners or the beneficiaries in the wallet. So indirectly, it's creating savings and investment opportunities. I spoke about investment opportunity. There is a company called FinCap, which we partner with. If you are on Telecel Cash, MTN Momo, you are able to pay treasury bills through this platform. If you want to buy normal treasury bill, you have to go to bank, do a lot of CSD here and there and all those things. It takes you so much time. Once you are hooked onto this platform, you can easily buy treasury bills and stuff like that without a work from your home. Let me talk about credit and macro lending. Again, to get financial resilience, sometimes you need this. And we all know, if you want to take money from our brick and mortar banks, many years ago, I was also in Sierra Leone. And a friend of mine came to me and said he needed money from one of the banks. But when he went there, they looked at the face and they said he was too young. So they didn't give him the loan. Today, you can apply for a loan from Telecel Cash, Mobile, Momo, AT Money. They don't even need to know much of your age. We look at your financial transactions on the platform, and we decide whether we will give you 200 cedis, 500 cedis, or 2,000 cedis. And this is not just money for people to consume, it's also for businesses. We do have people who are borrowing this money for SME businesses, doing other things and earning money, especially our Momo agents. It allows for what we call peer-to-peer lending. So if you're a little bit trustworthy and you don't have money, you can ask your friend to give you a few cedis and return the next day. It solves the problem. When we talk about financial resilience, this is one of the ways to address the challenges that we have in the system. Crowdfunding is becoming one of the things that is happening. If you find yourself in a very difficult corner, we do have platforms where you can go, talk to individuals. If they are convinced, they will give you the money and then you refund it the next day. Insurance is another area. Until recently, insurance was like for the rich and sometimes compulsory. If you own a car and there is no requirement to do insurance, probably you won't do. But because it's compulsory, you have to do it. 4 minutes more, I'll finish soon. Okay. So quickly, again, insurance tech is something that we're doing. Let me now then go quickly so that I give you practicality what is happening in Ghanaian environment and probably my company. Few of the things, case studies that we have at Telecel. So we have a platform that on monthly basis, we are disbursing over 3 billion Ghana cedis to households, individuals. I think this is one of the ways of addressing the challenges we face around the financial resilience. Last year, we had about 30 million interest paid to customers who are saving money on our platforms. We disbursed over 100 million loans to about 1.5 million customers with almost next to nothing in terms of credit and background check. Over 700 customers were paid health insurance premium, up to about 18 million. The last bit I want to talk about is international remittance. Almost 500 million were sent directly to customers' account, about 360K customers' account. And we have over 400,000 agents who are earning between 200 to 2,000 cedis a month as an income. If this is not a way to improve the financial resilience of individuals and households, then what can it be? I would encourage everyone to take the step, join the wagon, be part of the fintech. I have been telling people that in the next 10 years, probably is too far. The only way, the only way you can find physical cash will be in museum. Thank you.
Another round of applause for him. Okay, so we're going to have our second speaker speak on a similar theme. And prior to that, we want to take the advert for Broad Spectrum. They are one of our sponsors, and it's only right that we give them that audience. So we'll take the advert for Broad Spectrum. Okay. So in the absence of that, we will welcome our speaker, our second speaker, to give us his speech. Kindly help me welcome Mr. Sam Osei-Kwetia.
How many minutes?
10 minutes.
Thank you very much. So my name is Sam Kwetia from Broad Spectrum. Mr. Chairman, I would like to follow the earlier presenter to also say all protocols observed. Because I see a lot of my senior colleagues here, and sometimes when you are in a forum like this, you ask yourself, what else can you say? When you have all the professors behind you, and some of whom have taught you. I mean, Professor Adumfe taught me ethics, Professor Abo also taught me, and some of you also seated also taught me, and I'm very grateful for that. Thank you. Briefly, just quick notes about Broad Spectrum. Broad Spectrum is an enterprise ICT business, and we are in the ICT space. We have about 5 subsidiaries, all harnessing business in the ICT space. So we have Spectrum Fiber, which is an SPV owned by GIF, which is the Government of Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund, owning 40%, and Broad Spectrum itself owning 60%. What we have is, we have over 5,000 kilometers of fiber all over Ghana. I'm sure if I should ask all of us whether we know Spectrum Fiber, I don't think anyone will know. That is one of our strategies, that will keep it very simple and then focus on what we do. So we provide businesses. One of our customers, for example, is MTN. Broad Spectrum is also the entity that built G-Money. So if you're on G-Money, it was built by Broad Spectrum. We partnered GCB to do that. So there are a couple of landmark projects that the group has been embarking on. And one of the things you're also proud of, for example, is that it's wholly Ghanaian owned. I mean, we don't have any foreign ownership in the business. The other point is that we are also in the educational space, and we recently partnered Garnet to provide connectivity to about 70 of the tertiary institutions all over Ghana. And so we are proud. And then lastly, we also want to say thank you for the opportunity to partner you, and would like to say that going forward, I think it's going to be a permanent feature of the entity, and every year we'll be supporting the school to be able to execute 8 programs. So I'll be brief. I think I have 10 minutes to deliver. What we are supposed to focus on in how households are supposed to remain resilient, especially in the DDEP era. But before that, let's ask ourselves, how did we get to this point? I'm sure we know that at a particular point in time, the country was saddled with high debt levels. If you recall, somewhere in 2022, there was a Bloomberg report where they put the debt to GDP ratio to be around 81.5%. And then the Ministry of Finance came to correct it to be 78.4%. It was still very high. And then this debt were having economic strain on the country. And of course, we also know the impact of COVID-19 and all the pandemic issues that we all encountered. It affected all of us. In fact, over 500 kilometers of our fiber were destroyed during the COVID era through galamsey, sand winning, and other activities. So the impact on the economy was very grave. And of course, rising interest costs was also an issue. And then the IMF program is also one of the things that precipitated the need for the DDEP to happen. And then, of course, the government also wanted to restore confidence in the market just to ensure that the country moves on. Now, for us to talk about the resilience, what are some of the impacts on the household? And I'm sure everyone here may have been affected. There was reduction, in the income of bondholders. If you recall, the former CJ, Chief Justice, was all over the news trying to get the government to align and all that. It was really very serious for people who were affected. And then also for individuals, some savings were completely eroded. Now, if you follow the history of all these things, what even made it more serious is that some banks collapsed, people had not gotten their money. I'm sure we all know gold, what happens to men's gold, for example, where we lost money, and so many other people. So on the back of this, if we're also going to lose monies coming from the bonds that we've invested in, then it was that serious. And also at the point, people also speculated and said that, look, government bonds are supposed to be risk-free. How can you have a situation where the investment you've made is supposed to be risk-free is now being eroded? So it's a real issue for the individuals who were affected. Then also, it led to some higher living costs. Remember, for example, today we know the cost of electricity has gone up. The cost of fuel just increased yesterday. And a couple of things. If you go to the market today and you are buying anything, those of you who, when you vacate, you go to market, you know what is happening. The bucket of tomatoes, for example, is about 250 cedis today in the market. It's very practical and it's affecting the households. Now, for businesses, those of us who are managing the businesses that we run, we have liquidity challenges. So typically, if, for example, if you invested in a particular instrument and you expect that monies are going to come back at a particular point in time, only for you to be told that you need to restructure that debt or that instrument, extend tenor, reduce your interest rate, it throws your entire business out of gear. It affects your balance sheet. And those of you who are doing accounting and finance, I'm sure you can analyze the impact. Whatever you're expecting to do, you need to do some write-offs, and you're doing your IFRS and all that. All those applicable things will affect your profitability. It increases also your borrowing cost, investment uncertainty, impact on financial institutions, which also we all know all that. All those things affected businesses. Now, when do we say that you are resilient? Now, you are only resilient as a household or as a home when you are able to meet your recurring expenditures. If you're able to put the lights on, if you're able to finance the school fees, you also pay the health bills when they arise, you say that you are financially resilient in your home. Similarly, for businesses, you can also say you are resilient if you're able to meet the recurring expenditure occurring on a monthly basis for your business. So if, for example, you've contracted certain obligations and on a monthly basis you are not able to meet those obligations, you cannot say you are resilient. Now let me now move into how do we ensure that we remain resilient in times like this. And I'm sure my earlier colleague mentioned how fintechs will be able to do that and how Telecel is doing that in that space. Now, as individual homes, I think the first thing we need to ask ourselves, or we need to do, and with the permission of the chairman, we need some mental health and emotional well-being training. I mean, it's a very important point, and if you note this, and thankfully, because we all have churches today, and in the mosque and in all the things we do, I think we've managed it well. So it does not exacerbate, and we are able to live with the occurrences or the situation. It's very, very important. Because imagine a home where the only source of money for that man who is on retirement and is 70 years, waiting for those payments to go to hospital for his kidney checks and all the things you have to do, dialysis and all that, and those monies do not come at a particular point in time. It creates also the person can either die or out of something untimely will leave us. So it's important that in times like this, we continue to educate ourselves. And those of us who are in positions to do that, let's help people who have such or similar situations. Stress management, and be open and communicate about it. That look, there are other means or through which you can access financing to do whatever you want to do. But mentally, we need to educate ourselves so we can manage it consequence on us. But the first point that we need to talk about is to be able to prioritize our expenditure. I mean, in our homes. For example, I don't just buy, or I make sure that when we are buying things, we buy from cheaper sources. I mean, if you take money, for example, you go to any sales shop, you know that the item has been multiplied by 1.3. If you go to any supermarket, you know there's a margin on it. Sometimes they'll even put VAT on it. But there are some shops when you go, you don't pay VAT. Mr. Chairman. The items are you just buy them quietly. I mean, there are times of niceties and going to work in shops and, showing that the grandeur, you have money, you need to prioritize and be very careful. And also, you need to know where the things are. Very cheaper things. Sometimes you have to wake up very early as a household to go and buy. If you go to, for example, Domain Market, where I buy my things, and you just cross the road, if you buy it in the Domain Market, it's very expensive. The market women go to behind the road at St. John's, buy the things and bring them to the market, and that their margin of 50%. Why can't you park your car there and buy the things? And then also the second point that households should consider will be buy only the essentials. So for example, if you know that you are watching DSTV and you don't need the full premium bouquet, you can't speak French, the French channel, and what are you using it for? Why won't you pay for something very simple? If DSTV is too big, look for Prime TV. Don't go for Apple, Prime, and all that on your channels. And then you spend money. It may be very small because DSTV, for example, maybe you are paying about $10 for the full bouquet. But you can pay maybe $2 or $3 and get the Prime TV. And you get all the Nigerian movies. All the movies you want are also there. The other thing that households should consider, let's improve our home and financial literacy. Some households do not understand how to invest, how to even negotiate for interest. When a bank, for example, has not given them the right interest, what do they need to do? What process? They are afraid to even enter banks, to even go and speak to a customer service officer when they are there and the banks can offer those services. Let people also understand how to insure. For example, you take an insurance for your child. In times like this where you're having these issues, you can fall back on insurance and pay for your educational bills and all that. Same as health, and also improvement in financial literacy is very important. Now, the other thing we can help households to be very resilient is being part of community and support networks. So, for example, in my church, we have the aged, we have an arrangement for all the aged and the widows and the widowers who are beyond 60 and 70 years. So, because of these issues, we organized all of them, spoke to them, and tried to understand whether any of them lost investment during these times. And what we did was to counsel them. What we needed to support them, we supported them. What we needed to find alternative means for them, we solicited for funds from other people, and we helped them. So if you are part of any community network, it helps. These support you. You can just having a meeting can take your mind off some of these issues when they occur. And then also, we should also try and budget smartly. Budgeting smartly means we need to reevaluate our budget in homes and ask ourselves, what are we looking at in the next 1 year? If there are things that we don't need to focus on, don't let us focus on them so we can make good progress. Then again, those of us here will also make demands on our parents. We need to tone down the demands. Because I know people make demands. Some very ridiculous demands. Mr. Chairman, because of time, let me also quickly move into what businesses have to do. And I think over here there are copious research that I'm sure we've all read and we've written. So, for example, we need to reassess the company's strategy and the plan that we are implementing. What exposures do we have as a business? How are these exposures going to impact us? Sometimes you've taken an exposure on the back of the investment you've made, knowing that you've restructured those investments under the DDEP or under any situation, interest rate has gone down, so you are going to lose value. The payment time has also increased. You are not going to get the money at the time that you had planned. You also need to look at your debt exposure, restructure it to align it with this so you can match it. So you are not called into any situation where you cannot meet your obligations. Then also you need to look at your cash flow management. I mean, in the offices, for example, there are so many things that when you have money, business overlook. Lights on, genset running, so many other issues that bring leakages into the business. Business have to look at those things and prioritize and manage them well. You can also engage a financial advisor because these things are very technical, and in situations where you lack the required financial understanding to be able to take decisions, there are so many financial advisors available to help you. Banks offer those services also. And in situations where you need some help, financial advisors will always be available to help you navigate the situation. Then also operational adjustment. You need to optimize cost. So for every expenditure that you are making in the business, you should be able to recognize and ask yourself, what revenue is this expenditure matching? If there's no matching to that particular cost, you need to reevaluate and ask yourself, what is the need for this expenditure? If that expenditure is not bringing any revenue or it's not addressing any business opportunity that's going to give you some future benefit, you need to cut it off. Then revenue diversification. You need to look at other opportunities in the market and diversify the source of revenue as a business. Now, another point is stakeholder communication. So if you're a business, for example, and you have other stakeholders, your vendors who have given you some credit. Now, knowing that we are in a very difficult situation, you need to go back to your stakeholders. Your shareholders, for example, will demand that, what are the returns on the business? Why are we making these losses and all that? You need to manage the expectations and let them understand that at this point, for the next 2 years or 3 years, until the government and the nation come out of this situation, we may not be able to pay dividend, or dividend payment or payouts may be very low. In situations like this, when you speak to them, most shareholders understand and they are even able to inject more money into the business to run the affairs of the company. Your creditors are also able to give you longer creditor days to match your business. Then finally, on that also, we can do some strategic partnerships. I mean, these are times where businesses must come together. If you recall, when earlier in the week we were doing all this presentation, trust count in situations like this, where you partner other businesses to deliver solutions. So one of the things that are happening in the fintech space, a lot of collaborations are happening. Health is partnering fintech. So those of us who have been part of the various fintech awards, you see fintech bank, best fintech bank solution. For example, Broad Spectrum won the best fintech power pay solution last year because we do something with Netco in the North. Such partnerships help to boost businesses. And then lastly, you need to be mindful of the regulatory framework that the company is working in. We may be going through crisis, but PwC in auditing your books or KPMG will never overlook the impact of those crises on your books. You need to comply. BOG will not allow you to just do anything. You need to comply. Whatever you are doing, you need to ensure that you stay informed in the regulatory environment and comply. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sam Kwetia. We value your promise of continuous support. Please, let's put our hands together for him again. We'll take a musical interlude, and straight after, we'll delve right into the panel discussions and dissect and properly understand the theme of today's program.
Okay, another round of applause for the group. I could see Professor Vera Fiado dancing with one of them. Okay, so we've reached a very important aspect of our program. And at this point, we want to do a deep dive into the theme for this year's Management Day celebration. We've heard two very insightful speeches from our first speaker and our second speaker. So we want to invite some of our professors, some of our very well-researched experts in this particular area to come and share their thoughts and ideas on this important subject. We will also give you the opportunity to ask questions and also contribute to the discussion when the panel session has come to a close. So with a round of applause, kindly help me welcome the first on the list of the panel, Professor Vera Fiado. She's an associate professor of the University of Ghana Business School Finance Department. Please help her get to her seat. So the second on the panel is Professor Eliklimi Agloyo. Another round of applause for him. So our third on the panel is already seated up. And kindly help me welcome Professor Robert Darko. Okay, so once again, I'm going to moderate this session. I promise we're going to do it in very good time, and we'll be out of here before you know it. So we heard our first speaker and our second speaker. They've said a lot about economic resilience for households, for businesses in this interesting era that we find ourselves. Not too long ago, for the first time, Ghanaians had the opportunity to hear domestic debt exchange program. Many households never knew what this whole concept was about. And up till now, the impact of the DDEP is still very much with us. And we think it is very important for us to use this opportunity to also highlight certain things that households could learn from, businesses could learn from. And who best to do this than the premier school, University of Ghana Business School. So panelists, thank you very much for joining us here today. The first question that we want to ask, from where you sit, from all the researches that you've done, what are some of the challenges that households and businesses are encountering as a result of the DDEP? So I'll give the opportunity to each of them to say something about it, and then we'll go on to the next question. So Prof. Abloyo.
Okay, thank you very much. So first of all, I'll provide an overview of the DDEP, what did it really entail. On the 5th of December, the government of Ghana announced 5th December 2022, right? The government of Ghana announced a domestic debt exchange program, mainly to help reduce its debt exposure. Now, that is under the context of an increasing level of debt, right? As of November 2022, our debt to GDP was over 100%. And that's like on a dangerous level, red signal, right? Now, in the literature, the standard is 60%. Of course, countries like the US, UK, etc., can sustain higher debt levels because they have higher institutional quality, they have more reserves, and the rule of law works, etc. But the general threshold, especially for developing countries, is 60% of GDP. And as of November 2022, we were at 100.3% of GDP, meaning that our debt was what? Unsustainable, and we needed to do something, right? So on the 5th of December, the government announced this DDEP program that involved bonds amounted to 137.3 billion Ghana cedis. They were asking investors to exchange those old bonds for a set of new bonds. In the DDE1, which was the 5th December deal, they had 4 new bonds maturing in 2027, 2029, 2032, and then 2037. And their composition was 17% for 2027, 17% for 2029, 25% for 2032, and 41% for 2037. So that was the term structure in terms of the maturities. In terms of the interest rates, it was 0% to be paid in 2023. So you will have 0 coupons in 2023. 5% was to be paid in 2024, and 10% thereafter. Now, investors obviously were not happy with this deal because imagine that you have a loan you've taken based on your bond, and now you are getting 0%. It means that you may default on the loan. So on the 24th of December 2022, the government announced a Christmas package, a new deal, that was better than the first deal. So in the second deal, we had, again, different bonds, right? So you had 2027 to 2033 in terms of maturity for investors holding bonds for 2023. And then post-2023, the maturity was 2027 to 2038. In terms of the interest rate structure, it was, again, 0% in 2023, 5% in 2024, and then there was a coupon step up from 9% to 10.65%. So that was DDE2. But again, investors were still not happy because they would have faced liquidity challenges. Coupon was still 0% in 2023 and 5% in 2024. So the government announced DDE3 on 3rd February 2023, which was much better than the previous deals. In this case, the coupon rates were higher. And also there were new categories of investors. So the category A investors were those below 59 years and collective investment schemes. Category B was for those above 59 years. And category C was any other person who was in either category A or category B. So it included mainly the banks, for example, insurance companies, and other investors. So that's a general overview of the program. Now, let me put it in the context of the fiscal space, right? The bonds were going to be paying interest of 23.5 billion. So the eligible bonds for the domestic debt exchange program, if the government was to pay coupons on them, it would have paid about 23.5 billion. So by entering into this deal, the government was saving 23.5 billion Ghana cedis in 2023 alone. Now, you can compare that to the fiscal deficit. In 2023, it was about 61 billion. So that's about 37 or 38% of the fiscal deficit. So that allows us to see that the program was to provide fiscal space for the government in the context of, again, the IMF program. So I think I'll leave it here for my other panelists to come in and have their say. Thank you.
Yes, please. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so in terms of the question as Dr. Moore asked, from where we sit, what's the impact, households and businesses? So taking off from where Prof. Agbonoye left off, clearly when government holds back, for those who understand, it's more of a debit and credit. So somebody doesn't pay, it means somebody doesn't receive. And so that immediately means that cash flow constraints begin to hit all the entities that are affected. For some and individuals in particular, that would mean welfare losses in terms of even lifestyles, a drop in standard of living. For business in particular, you begin to see that in the fact that because of that negative impact it may have on cash flows, it begins to even affect the investment opportunity sets, means what can they really fund? And then the flip back is that it's likely to even create a vicious cycle, because if the firms are not able to invest, then clearly even the ability to provide employment, which comes back to affect the individual households, etc., is even compounded. So from where we sit, it's become like an interesting loop, which means that as businesses suffer the more, they are unable to help the individuals, then employment suffers.
it even ricochets back to government, because if taxation is supposed to come from the individuals, then it means that by virtue of that reduction in employment, it means that taxation that should go first from the business side and even to individuals would also be constrained. So that's what, at least, I see from where I sit. Thanks.
Thank you. And the great thing about speaking last after very knowledgeable colleagues is that you can say that they've said it all. Okay. So they've said it all. But let me just add one or two other things which I think, generally for DDEP, some people view it as a debt default, sovereign debt default. And once you have sovereign debt default, it creates uncertainty, it creates reversals, particularly in respect of foreign investments. And that has implications also for what we are seeing in respect of our exchange rates. And you know that once you have increased instability in your exchange rate, it also feeds into prices, it feeds into not just prices of goods and services, but also prices of borrowing, okay, so interest rates. So some of the things that we are seeing in respect of the economy from the exchange rate point has to do with the DDEP. But again, I think our earlier speakers, Mr. Mwati and Kwetia, have enumerated the effects on households quite well. I don't think any research can do as good justice as they have done. Households that were reliant or had planned for these receipts from their bond or yields from their bonds really got affected, okay? And of course, depending on how resilient you are or depending on how much of your portfolio is in the bonds, it could have very, very dire implications. And like someone earlier said, the full effect of the DDEP is not known. Indeed, we are only speaking to the economic effects, but there are social, health, and other effects of the DDEP that will feed through at a later stage. So, and again, this is consistent with the literature. Again, I think Ellie alluded to that. And particularly in Latin America, where a lot of these things have happened and a lot of research have been done on it, the effects of sovereign debt default is essentially what we are seeing in our economy today. Low investor confidence, which means we are seeing reversals, and so the companies that are parking and leaving, of course, there are other reasons, but part of it is actually engendered by this DDEP. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for the first round of answers on the impact of the DDEP on the households and the businesses. So in the presence of all that you've said, what can you say about the current economic climate? Do you think that the households and the businesses have built enough resilience, economic resilience, to be able to face such challenging times as we are seeing recently? What do you think?
Well, I think it's obvious. I mean, resilience, whether it's a business or it's at the household level, is a function of your endowments, right? Phrases that we economists used to use in the past have been appropriated by politicians these days. And so if I say the fundamentals are weak, somebody might think I'm doing politics, okay? But essentially what it means is that if the foundations of your business, the foundations of the households are not strong, you do not have adequate savings, you are not efficient as a business, then clearly your level of resilience in terms of the DDEP then gets, the impact becomes even higher. And so the effect of the DDEP on households in terms of resilience depends on people's endowments levels. So, of course, there were people who were going about the country as if nothing had happened, right? But there are people who really felt the pinch. Unemployment or underemployment, I think, is compromised. Inequality, economic inequality is also going to be, if anything at all, perpetuated, if it's not increased. And again, these have not just short-term implications, but they do have medium to long-term implications for households. So resilience clearly is compromised. So now, for instance, if as a result of the DDEP, you've lost some ability to respond to, say, an idiosyncratic shock, say a family member dies or whatever, it just happens. What then happens? Okay, you are compromised. So your resilience then gets compromised because of the environment that we find ourselves in. The headwinds still persist. Note that our NPLs in the country is above 20%, non-performing loans, right? And it's not going to get easier, okay? It's not going to get easier. So the headwinds persist, and if we just have to be deliberate, very deliberate about implementing or going with the IMF program, but also even working harder, particularly on our physicals, in order to try and then reduce the impact on our levels of resilience. Thank you.
Yeah, so what do we have to say about the climate? In one word, I think you can say it's tough. And you can say that even on the front where somebody will tell you that people who never used to call suddenly will call you and say, please, can you send something? And that's how bad it is. You meet business owners who are struggling. Part of it being that because the banks themselves were highly exposed to these bonds, the restructuring meant that they do not have enough credit to even offer in the first place. Some of them, their capital is actually being affected. So they are looking more inward to try to fix their problems, and so lending becomes a problem. Even when we didn't have DDEP, like my colleague said, NPLs already not our best bet. Now, in the face of a weakened financial frame where banks do not have the liquidity to be able to freely give and risk capital, what it means is that credit is declining, investment is declining, and then it's just feeding back into the system. Of course, the issue here is we've got to be deliberate in trying to somehow maybe slow the wheel in the speed with which that feedback is just running back and shrinking everything back and forth. And how do we do that? I believe it's about time beginning to understand what really works in our system. Recently had an opportunity to engage an external party who said, it's beginning to look like when it comes to Ghana, all theories seem to be thrown out through the window. Our data seems to be singing different songs. So maybe it's about time we start looking at what really should work for us. What principles are we supposed to apply? Are we to apply the same, research that has been done elsewhere? Would it work for us? Would it not work for us? We don't know yet, but in simple terms, it is tough, and businesses, entities, individuals are feeling the pinch. Yes.
Okay, so Prof. Abloyo, I'm going to take you to the next question, as we've received some good insights from Professor Vera Fiado and Prof. Darko. So on your side, I want to ask, one of the persistent highlights in the economy has been the persistent depreciation of the cedi. Do you think this has anything to do with the DDEP? Is there a spillover effect? What are we seeing? What is the linkages between the currency challenges and the DDEP?
Okay, so thank you very much for the question. I'll just say something little on the previous question. So typically we say that households should have savings of minimum 6 months of your income, which means that if, for example, you lose your job, you have an adjustment period of about how many months? 6 months, right? Now, I'm sure most of us here probably don't have 6 months readily sitting down, right? So that already means that you are vulnerable to shocks. For some reason, I don't know why, business schools, including ours, tend to focus more on corporate finance and public finance, and not so much on personal finance, right? I'm not sure how many of us here have our personal balance sheets, listing all your assets, your liabilities, and your, your equity, right? In addition to that, do we know how vulnerable we are? Again, when we come to banks, we do stress testing. So if there's, for example, an interest rate shock, how does that affect the equity of the bank? When it comes to individuals, we just leave it to chance and time. Okay, we don't do stress testing on our personal balance sheets. What happens if interest rates change, etc. I think it's very important going forward for all of us, because for me, individuals are even more important than businesses and governments. We know that we have 3 economic agents: individuals, businesses, governments. In terms of the supply of funds to the financial system, individuals are net surplus units, typically, right? Governments, businesses are typically net deficit units. So we need to focus a bit more on personal finance, allowing people to understand their cash flow. Do you have your cash flow statement every month showing your outflows, inflows, etc.? So that's the dimension I wanted to add to the previous discussion. In terms of the linkage between the DDEP and the currency crisis, I would say that yes, there is some linkages. Before the DDEP even happened, you would recollect that investors, we had capital flight, right? Investors began to leave the country, and they were changing their cedis into dollars, meaning there was more demand for the dollar, putting additional pressure on the cedi. Because if there's demand for the dollar will appreciate, the cedi would depreciate. Okay, so I'll say that to a certain extent, and given the challenges after the DDEP, it is a spillover effect. But again, we don't know the counterfactual, right? In the absence of the DDEP, it could have been far worse than what we are seeing. So that will be my contribution for this round of discussions. Thank you.
So I think it is really something. The literature actually also attests to the fact that currency fluctuations do follow the... But I think even in Ghana, what makes it very interesting, I think, is the speculative behavior of the average Ghanaian. For me, the icing on the cake was one time when I happened to just go do my hair, and I walked out, and that was the first time it spiked around the time of the whole negotiation back and forth. The news was where, you know, we had this shooting trend where the dollar just moved from 10 all the way to almost 15. So somewhere along the line, apparently this hairdresser apprentice also bought around 13. So when it shot all the way to 15, and then suddenly in a matter of about 72 hours, it started reverting. I'm walking out and I see this 19, 20-year-old says, hey, the dollar that is changing price, ahame pao. And then I tend to look and I'm wondering, why would a hairdresser apprentice be actually worried about it? Apparently she invested, she was now using the dollar as a store of, well, as an investment. And so you have this demand for dollar that is not driven in any way by production. It's not that we are looking to import something and so we need the dollar. So there's this very funny cycle we are creating. We take all the cedis, we go and use that to buy dollars, and then we literally freeze the dollars because we take them back. They don't even end up in the banking system. We take them back into our homes, under our bed, safe. So there's this very artificial shortage that is being created for dollars, and that just keeps on skyrocketing. So last week you were buying $1 is 10, a week later is 15, another week is 20. When in reality it's not driven by any, valuable base. And I believe that if it's going to stop, it may start from the people and a good understanding of what it really means for that vicious cycle to continue. If it continues, the nation is worse off, and in the long run, it comes back to affect all. So yes, indeed, it is what the legislature says would be the case, that yes, as capital is flowing out, that would be an issue. But I think in our case, it seems to be an even deeper one because of the speculative demand for the dollar. Also partly because now I think investor confidence in the securities we have has been compromised. So most people do not necessarily see, I put it aside, I told somebody, where do we go from here when the risk-free has suddenly become risky? So most people who say, oh, government bills are risk-free, of course, the concept is that it is default risk-free, meaning you get the money, the value we are not too sure of. But now, because they are not sure, people are looking to put their money in dollars as a way to store value. And if it's not going to stop now, I guess we have a very long path to walk. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the insights on the ravages of the excessive demand of the dollars on our economy. And I will still take your question. Where do we go from here? Where do we really go from here? At least Prof. Agloya is teaching us about personal financial management and stress testing. What more can we do? Households, individuals, businesses. Where do we go from here? What strategies can we put in place to help us cope in this period?
It's a very difficult question. I know that Ellie mentions personal finance, and I think it's very true. I mean, you need to be able to prioritize properly. And we need to, as a country, also start improving efficiency of our spending. Now, the efficiency of spending comes in two forms. One is the nominal one, where you are saying that if I am going to, where is Mr. Kwetia? I'm going to buy foodstuff, then I should go to the St. John's market, is that the example he used, right? As opposed to the domain market. So you get your best value for money, right? So that is one. And of course, that manifests itself from the individual level to the government level in the form of corruption, okay? But the second has to do with the prioritization of our expenditure. Again, personal finance means that we need to prioritize our expenditures properly at the individual level, at the business level, and then at the government level. Now, if we don't do that, unfortunately, the fiscal consolidation that we want and potential gains that we may have, and again, the operational word is may have made with the DDEP would actually just dissipate. Okay, so prioritization of expenditure has to become, for me, the key in respect of where we go from here. But again, like I'm saying, the prioritization has to begin with us. So again, was it Mr. Kwetia or Moat who said something to the effect about your DSTV, which channels you need and which channels you don't need? All we do on DSTV is to watch news and football, right? Well, for most people. Anyway, so I think it is about reprioritizing, but we have to be deliberate about it. It won't just happen. Okay, so we go for DDEP, and my own view of our budget is that we could have done more. We could have done more in substance and also in signaling that we are serious about fiscal consolidation. So let me just stop here. Thank you.
Okay, so Prof. Vera and then Prof. Agloyo. And then we'll take the final remarks. It's not fair for me to sit here and give them my tall list of questions. I want to give you the opportunity to also ask questions so that we can have an interactive session after the final remarks here.
So what I can add to, yes, the prioritization of expenditure, it comes down to something about, currently we are facing a lot of capital flight. It means that we need to do something about some reorientation. Maybe we should seriously consider how we are going to send the right investor sentiment out there so that the funds that are running out would somehow have some confidence to stay and just, because yes, we are likely to get back to our pre-DDEP levels and better. The question is how long? Now, if we don't stop the wheel from spinning, most likely we're not going to stop. So what you can look at from that angle is, for example, can we begin to insulate our policies from politics? Because sometimes there are things that we may want to do that are right to do, but they do not inure to the political will either way, and so we are forced to. One of the things that we need to then begin to look at is, if we are going to send the signal out there that we are a safe place, then we should give the investors who want to risk their capital within our economy the assurance that it doesn't matter who is in power, who has the reins, the right things will be done as and when. And those things are there. So yes, sending the right signal, that's key. And in some of the ways would be, one, for example, central bank independence, budget transparency, what have you. So those things are quite critical in working. Another thing that seems to emerge as a result of this DDEP and the shrinkage of credit is the fact that we need to begin to explore new avenues for raising capital. At this point, the cost of funds from the banking sector, and remember, for the Ghanaian economy, we are mostly bank dependent, which means that once the banks begin to shake, the entire economy is going to shake along with that. Is it time we begin to look for cheaper sources of capital? Something that comes to mind for me off-head, for example, is the fact that if you take the Companies Act, it stipulates, at least the lawyers will help if I go off, that the members of the company, sometimes including bondholders, should not exceed 50. So now let me play a flip rule. We need to set up a big short company. Ghana, we only have 33 million people, assuming everybody is buying. Let's say 40, let's round it up. But for you to be able to meet the quantum of production that makes a certain venture feasible, you need just about maybe 1/3 or 10% of the whole of Africa to participate, which means, therefore, that you need significant capital investment. Now, flip side is you find that a lot of capital, if you look at a BOP, a lot of the capital, we are net payers of interest and dividend because most of the capital factors of production are owned mostly by external entities. Now, how about this? If you're asking 50 persons to put together 2 billion Ghana, I believe we can do the mathematics. That's a huge exposure for one person. I'm not too sure whether, as Ghanaians, we have the critical mass of entities who are able to maybe shell 400,000 just like that and walk. And how many businesses will they be able to do on those fronts? In a place like, let's say, the US, where they even have a larger body of potential investors. Up until Facebook was forced to go public after 500, they've managed to lobby their way to 2,000. Now, with that kind of something that will almost seem like a crowd-funded space, is it time we begin to look at the very foundation so that we can promote markets that allow access to capital, patient capital in particular, to allow businesses to grow and therefore not be killed? Because if you take a loan, for example, at 40%, I'm not sure how much you should earn yourself to be able to keep up on the payments for bank lending, for example. So going forward, I think those are some of the things that immediately come to mind for me. Thank you.
We'll take Professor Agloyo, and then we'll move on to the open session.
Okay, thank you. So I think that financial crisis and shocks have become more frequent. In the 1990s, we were very excited as financial engineers that whatever hit us, we can manage it. We had financial engineering, derivatives, etc. We could manage risk, no matter what it was, right? But we've seen that we are seeing more tail events or extreme events that we are not able to deal with. Okay. Sitting here, I'm not sure that never again this won't happen again. What I think we need to do is to build resilience. So number one, if you ask me, we should improve our import cover. You would remember that it even went below 1 month of import cover. That's severe, right? My personal recommendation would be that we should increase our reserve ratio to about 12 months of import cover. If we do 6 months for individuals, I think that for a country we should do at least 12 months import cover. That builds resilience. Even if you have a shock, you will not have speculators playing around and toying with your currency that much. So that's my first point. The second point is more about, again, building on from what Vera said. It's more about strengthening institutions. I think everything boils down to leadership and governance, right? And a lot of the things we are seeing has deep roots in corruption. A lot of the ministers may have, so this is not from me, I met somebody, people have a lot of dollars sitting in their home in poly tanks and in their rooms. That limits the supply of dollars that can go around. Like Vera said, creating artificial shortages. So if you ask me, we need to strengthen institutions and to dismantle colonial institutions, right? So there's a popular paper by R.S Amegashie from MIT, and he argues that there are colonial origins to development. So they did an empirical study, compared countries around the world, and saw that countries that had a lot of settlers, European settlers, they tended to do better than countries that did not. So for example, take Ghana. Ghana is not too friendly, right, in terms of the climate, in terms of the mosquitoes and malaria. So you had high settler mortality deaths. Okay, when the Europeans came, they didn't find this place to be very suitable for them to live here. So what they did was to build colonial institutions. So if they were building roads, railways, it was purposely to channel resources out of the country. Compare that to, for example, South Africa, Namibia, Zimbabwe, where the weather was similar to Europe, and also where they didn't have a lot of problems with mosquitoes. They said, this is like heaven, we can stay here. Okay, so they built more friendly institutions, and development in those areas tended to be more. Now, post-independence, when our politicians took over, they saw the system and said, wow, this is something that we can actually take advantage of. And we've seen a lot of corruption. I think that's the root cause of our underdevelopment. If we tackle corruption, build institutions, and create financial resilience, for example, building about 12 months of import cover, I think that our vulnerability to future crises will be lower. Thank you.
Okay, so a bigger round of applause for my panelists. So with all due respect, one of our panelists has other engagements and would have to step out. So we'll take his permission to leave us at this moment. But please, let's give him a round of applause before he leaves. Okay, so at this time, we'll open the floor for questions, contributions. And because we are trying to manage the time, we'll be grateful if you raise up your hand, or if you're a student, kindly walk to the front, to the middle, so that we can take all the questions and then we can answer them appropriately. So if you do have a question or a contribution, please. Yes, I have one hand here. So we'll take the first round of questions, we'll take the second round of questions, and then we'll call it a day on the question session. So we have some faculty in front, Professor Bosi.
Thank you very much for very insightful discussions as panelists. My most important takeaway, even though all others that are said is important, is the 6 month cover. So, Ellie, you have a brother. You have not told me this all this while, eh? So for me, it's very important. But my question is about what will you advise regarding investment in treasury bill versus other forms of investment? You have names for them in this volatile DDP era, so that we will not also have to go and pick it, especially those of us who are, aged, and we don't want to take chances. Thank you.
So I wanted to ask from the academic point of view, is it not time that we start developing theories that fit our society? Because I believe, in fact, one of the reasons why I stopped reading economics and finance is because I felt it was focused on a certain market that I don't have a relationship with. If I go to Makola, the finance and economics happening over there is different from what Karl Marx and all those other people have said about finance. So is it not time that as academics and Africans, we start having frameworks or theories that reflect what we have here? Because I believe if you are talking about GDP ratio to how much we spend, if you go to my village in Abu Abuja, it will not tally. So I think we should find some things to do.
Okay, thank you. Just on a small note, I think this is just a comment. The Bank of Ghana regulations and others. So we are talking about personal financing here. I have a dollar account. I need my dollar. I go to the bank. Now, it becomes so difficult to access my own money. And if that is not addressed, of course, when I travel or I do any business and get a dollar, why would I send it back to the bank? So it's an issue that needs to be looked at beyond what the politicians are talking in the polytanks and under their backs. But my critical thing is, looking into the future, we are going into digital currency. Now we are talking about cryptocurrency and all these things. And what I foresee is not going to be dollar against CD. I mean, I could sit here and maybe do anything anywhere. What do you foresee when this become dominant, and how that is also going to impact our economy at the national, institutional, and personal levels? Thank you.
Good morning. So,
one question each. Okay, I see you have a whole book. I don't know if you have.
all right, so I'll combine all of them.
Very well.
So, I want to move from the national level. I see that most of the resolutions are looking at institutional reforms, right? So I want to come to the individual level. So looking at a state where SNITs, there are reports on SNITs that SNITs may not be able to pay pensioners in some years to come, and then also post DDEP. We used to call the GOG bonds as cushions for portfolios, but post DDEP, can we still call them that? And what position would you advise that individual investors in Ghana would take in the world of investments? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity, and then speaking extensively on DDEP and the rest. So my question basically has to do with thinking of we students. I wanted to ask, what are some of the most exciting trends in fintech that students should be aware of, and how can they position themselves to take advantage of these? Thank you.
Okay, so after the gentleman in the blue suit, they'll address the first round, and then the last three will come. We do the second round, and then we are done.
Okay, thank you. A very good morning to you all. And mine is more of a contribution, but if I'll be reformed, to be fine. In the sense that as a nation, where we've gotten to, it's mainly due to one or two decisions by our heads, that's the government gets it. I feel, or I think that if we move from if we move from a country of policies, okay, to a country of more of investments into, let's say, agriculture or anything that can bring back proceeds as a country, be able to get money from it, rather than we running a country on policies, because policies are supposed to bring about the welfare of the ordinary Ghanaian. But if the ordinary Ghanaian is comfortable in his home, but doesn't have money in his pocket, then that's what will cause him to either try and hoard dollars in his room or do other stuff that will actually impact on the economy once again. So I think we should rather look to improving the economy rather than running it on policies. Thank you very much.
Very much. Okay, so our panelists will answer the first round of questions, and then we'll take the last set.
Okay, so I'm not a typically fintech person, so all the fintech questions, I'm dodging them for Eddie. He will do the cryptos and the whatnots. That one, I'm not sure I can speak much sense to that. So comes, I think, the first question on T-bills and whatnots versus others. Now, in the typical investment space, we actually have two strands. We have the financial assets, that's typically the T-bills, the bonds, the stocks, etc. And then we have real assets. So for some may choose that, okay, maybe I'm going to do a blend. I have some of mine in real estate, I could do landed property elsewhere and other things. And then if you look and the trend works with you, and also in terms of your level of risk averseness, you want to do some gold and what have you. It's all about what makes you. So what will be defined as your investment portfolio may not necessarily work for me because my needs and desires may be very different. But it's a whole world of, should I say, it's a package, so you look at what works for you and then you pick them. And then I think as for the theories for Africa, I so much align. I think my first experience and my biggest was when I was doing my PhD, and then I was supposed to working on monetary policy and economic behavior, etc. And then I ran my analysis per the standard principle. When the economy is growing, the currency strengthens. Me alone, when I run my regression, when the economy is improving, the currency is depreciating. So I'm sitting somewhere in South Africa and I start praying tongues because it looks like my work is not aligning to any theory. I pick every single document I can lay hands on, and it doesn't seem, all they say is it's a puzzle. Even those who found something similar, all they say is a puzzle. Nobody wants to explain what makes it a puzzle because there's a standardized principle that it must follow. When the economy improves, the currency must improve. So I'm beginning to probe around and looking for, then I chance on somebody's small lecture notes that speaks to Ghana in particular for me at the time. And it spoke to the fact that when the economic growth you pick is not underpinned by productivity or production, your currency is not going to see anything. Because what it means is that we literally have a bubble. So we are capturing the demand. So yes, some friend or somebody sends you some remittances here and there. So you are able to demand for it, but then we are not producing to match up. So whatever we are capturing here as demand really is just a bubble. So we have a lot of money chasing very little in terms of production. The flip side also was the fact that when the taste and preferences of the people seem to be aligned towards imports, then what it means is that we're using all our money to demand external goods, which then begins to worsen our currency. And so, yes, there are so many things that do not operate. So, for example, you want to go around with monetary policy. More than 70% of the economy literally is filtered outside of the banking sector. In the US and the rest of the world, when the stock market coughs, the nation goes on its knees. In Ghana, even market efficiency in terms of information flow. Oh, when they say there was H1N1 flu, I'm wondering how many of us stopped eating chicken for a while. We don't respond. You check and find out it's important for an institution to have a properly structured governance framework. They do the right thing, nobody responds. And so clearly there are some fundamentals that are very different as far as we are concerned in terms of behavioral responses, etc., which means that we may want to get back to the drawing board and find out who are we and what really works, because what seems to work elsewhere, if you do something and it goes to the banking system, you may be touching just 10% of the population. 90% are out. So the question is, what are we supposed to do? And we can only do that if we begin to probe and research in the right way to understand what should work for us. It is clear what works for the West to a large extent does not work for us because financial architecture, what have you, is quite different. And for some reason, we seem maybe feeling a bit too lazy to do the legwork of that. But I definitely agree with you on that. I think beyond that, I think the rest is actually anything we can do to diversify our revenue base. Ideas, even on the household level. Can you begin to look at other things you could do to generate income? On the flip side, for the economy, can we begin to think of other ways to draw in income from other sources as opposed to what we've been doing so far? I think those are the few things I could add in terms of the questions that came up.
So, a lot of things I think useful to add there. But maybe fintech, right? So fintech, basically, we are seeing a bigger intersection between finance and technology. And that seems to be the trend for the future. Okay, so for example, areas to look out for will be machine learning and AI applications in finance. So for example, predicting credit default, in accounting, predicting suspicious or fraudulent transactions, etc. Another application is robo-advisors. So for example, most of our investment firms are still manual, but elsewhere they are building robo-advisors. So instead of speaking to a human financial advisor, you can interact with a robot that will give you equally good advice. Again, you have crowdfunding, right, where you can raise money from the crowd or from the general public. I think that's a very useful application as well. In the African context, I think the leading fintech application is mobile money. We should look at ways of building on that, right? So you can borrow from mobile money, you can invest, you can buy insurance, etc. So we should look at deepening the mobile money application so that we have more financial inclusion and more financial development. What else? So I think that's on the fintech bit. Now, there was a question on SNIT and what investors should do. Like Vera mentioned, every investor is different. What works for me probably would not work for you. It would be irresponsible on my part to give you financial advice without understanding your circumstances, etc. So I recommend that you speak to a financial advisor, right? They'll help you in doing your portfolio construction where you can optimize returns and minimize risk. Yeah, and I think there was a question from Professor on digital currencies. I don't really know what the future will be like, but possibly in the era of ECD, e-dollar, etc., it may make us more vulnerable because it's easier to probably change your CDs into dollars and other currencies. Thank you.
A round of applause for them. So this is the last round of questions. We'll give you the privilege because you're already standing. So kindly go ahead.
Thank you. Please, my question has to do with the currency depreciation. Please, like you said, the Ghana cedi's depreciation is largely due to the speculative nature of Ghanaians. And per what I've seen, with the increasing rate in the financial literacy, a lot of Ghanaians these days have broader knowledge about these financial markets, and most of them invest in these financial markets, especially Ghanaian students. And when they do that, it's like they are buying cryptocurrencies. They don't even want to store their currencies in Ghana cedis. When they open accounts, their accounts are open automatically in dollars. And so most of the money that they are using to trade on these markets are usually in the major currencies or in the cryptocurrency, which means making the demand for those currencies higher, as a result, depreciating our currencies. And my question is that, do you advise that the government of Ghana regulate these brokerage firms such that every Ghanaian who opens account or who hold, or the brokerage firm, the account of these Ghanaians will be held in Ghana cedis, or there should be a certain threshold that if your currency or your amount that you are holding in that account passes, you cannot hold it in the major currency, but you can hold it in the Ghana cedi so that it can also help to appreciate our currency. Thank you.
Okay, good morning once again. Okay, good morning once again. I'm Banaman. Aligning with the theme, emphasizing on the Ghanaian household, I would like to side with Professor Eli Plimi. That it boils down to leadership. But then when you take it from the viewpoint of the individual, Professor Vera Fiado perfectly illustrated the mindset of an average Ghanaian when she encountered the hairdresser and the young gentleman. Now my question is, what is your take on financial literacy and its penetration in our environment? And how can we incorporate it into our curriculum and educational system? Additionally, what regulatory reforms do you believe are necessary to fortify Ghana's financial system against external shocks, as mentioned, to enhance its ability to withstand currency depreciation? Okay.
Thank you. Please, mine is on the personal funding. We as students, business students, when we come during level 100, or as students, we are all about grades. So what we are being taught, we know the theories and other stuff concerning how to go about with our funding. I would like to ask, can it be part of the requirements as a business student, not in only Legon, other schools, that if you are being enrolled, you are supposed to do some compulsory investments, some practical things that you do for the period of 4 years. So at the end of your 4 years stay, you have some funds you can use to do something. I want to ask that question. Can it be part of our requirements to help us?
Okay, we have Professor Richard.
Thank you very much. I have 2 questions. Number 1, the DDEP. If you look at Latin America and the consequences it has wreaked there, do you think it has become an option for new governments to go to if we face any kind of stress? Or you think the consequences have been enough for other governments to avoid? Number 2, in reference to Emmanuel's question around localization of theory, looking at the IMF supporting us with relieving our debt, do you think that it is relevant, it is useful? Since we are all saying, or Professor Vera is agreeing that the very basis of that agreement or that relationship is Western induced when majority of our economy is localized. So how do we go about working with a system that we say is useful, but yet,
Okay, so I think that financial literacy is important, right? Not just for business students, but also non-business students. Possibly it should be a course that non-business students take, right? It's important for everybody. And there may be ways of approaching it. I know that the younger generation, they like to do more like games, gamification. So you can learn about stock trading and what bonds are, etc. Using some games, gamification. That's probably the way to go in training the younger generation in terms of financial literacy. As to making investments compulsory, I'm not sure it's possible. I'm not even sure how we can monitor that because, investment also includes risk, right? So if we make it compulsory and you lose money, what happens? I think that what we can do is to encourage, let you understand the benefits and what it stands to do for you if you invest, right? So there are a number of examples that I usually give. So in my investment class, if you invested your grandfather invested $100 for you in 1928, right, in US Treasury bills. Today, that money is worth about $2,000. Okay, one-time deposit. Now, if they did a one-time $100 deposit in Treasury bonds, today that money is worth about $50,000 US, one-time $100 deposit. Now, if they have put that money in the US stock market, one-time $100 deposit, the value today is about $700,000 US. This is public record, you can check. Okay, so what we can do is to encourage you, let you know the benefits, and I think that once you see the benefits, you would appreciate why you should invest. I used to do something I've stopped now. I'm not sure I should.
I have a response, but tell us what you do.
So in my investment class, I used to encourage them, oh, you know this, we have to practicalize the investment course. So you can go and buy T-bills, you bring it, I look at it, I give you some small marks, right? You can go and buy mutual funds, bring it, I give you marks. But this year, I haven't done that. Because I'm worried, given the investment environment. But I think that it's still good to invest, even despite the challenges that we have encountered. So, Dean.
Yes, so I think that the young lady's question is very interesting. The first bit of it is, when I was sitting here with Philip, the conversation we had was how he personally tracks and prepares his personal, financial statement. I'm not sure how many of us here students do that, even as colleagues. I don't know how many of us have personal financial statements. This month I got 20,000. I spent 20,000. These were the items on which I spent it. It helps you to actually know where your money is going a lot and whether or not you are actually spending the money well, and to know whether or not you can save some money. That's a good example of learning how to control your resources. But secondly, I think Dr. George Champong is here. George, will you want to stand up for them to see you? George is in charge of our innovation hub. George is in charge of our innovation hub, and in that space, there are a lot of very practical things that happen there. So you may not get the opportunity to be asked to invest and all of that in your lecture hall. But walk down there. The innovation hub is down the building that has the library downstairs. Walk there and talk to George and the team that work there. And they will give you opportunity to experiment with whatever thing you want to experiment with, including setting up businesses, forming companies, registering them. And I know some of our colleagues have been helping on financial management for these startup companies, how to invest, how to register your business, how to make sure that you file your taxes. All of those things are done there. So if you don't get it in your lecture, for example, if you're a public admin student and it's not happening in your program, you should go there and do it. Those who are in finance may get it in some other courses. But there are answers there for you. The other thing, because you're asking us to compulsorily ask you to do something, is that we are going to compulsorily ask you to dress like business executive. Yeah, but you, otherwise what? Yeah? Oh, if you like it, clap well. Because the first example of controlling and knowing yourself and feeling good about yourself is how you look, how you smell, you see, and what is in your head. So, oh, you don't love that one? The BAJS here has submitted to us a proposal on a dress code. Management is going to approve it, and we are going to get back to you. So Monday, you will dress like a business executive, a bank manager, with a tie. You are going. Even if the coat is smelling, it's still a good coat. And within the week, there will be very, specified ways that you should dress. Your colleagues in KNUST, even those of them who are in the forest, they have a dress code. Why not us? Please put your hands together. We too will do so. Yes, please.
I think John's question on the DDEP and what we should do. Well, I think that we need to be bold as African academics, right? And I had similar challenges to Vera. You see something and you struggle to explain it because it doesn't conform to the received knowledge or the conventional theories. And it's even difficult to publish because if you send it out, editors will say, well, this is not what we know, right? So we need to be bold as African scholars, promote our scholarship, promote our journals, promote our theories. The world is not uniform. It works in different ways. And a lot of the theories that the IMF staff bring here, they don't work, right? It's not because they don't have good intentions, if you ask me. The IMF has some of the best economists in the world. I think one of their former chief economists, Ashley DeMcCont, very splendid scholarship, right? But they don't understand our context. So you bring the policies and they don't work. Okay, so I'll say we should, including yourself, we should be bold as well, African scholars, and promote our own theories and scholarship. Thank you.
Okay, so I think somebody raised a question that borders on capital controls. I think that's a very delicate path to walk. I think the basis for, so we may not necessarily have to go on the hard controls, but more, if we can get to the point of building enough confidence in the currency. Nobody wants to hold cedis in the US, clearly. So that is because they believe in their currency and they trust their currency. What would it take to get us there? Part of it to be education, some level of patriotism, and etc. That, okay, yes, DDEP or any other thing has come. We need to weather the storm, as opposed to people just flying all over. So because if nobody is going to weather the storm for us. So I think that short of saying capital controls, what we need to do is to begin to build a system that allows people not even to consider a dollar-denominated account per se as an alternative, because they are sure that if I have my CD account today, tomorrow if I need dollars, I don't need to go and claim my entire bank account to buy a small amount of dollars I would have bought some weeks back. And that will require a lot of work on everybody's part. And then I think to George's question as to whether if Ghana is faced once more or another country, should we go? It is documented in the literature. Nobody goes to default, should I say intentionally. It's usually because they seem to have no choice of the gamut of options available to them. It's as if the only way is to default. Part of it is because if handled well, the default or the restructuring is supposed to offer some kind of breathing space for them to, let's say, restart the wheel or something they let go. And so the issue at play rather is, are we setting in place the right modalities to ensure that going forward, we do not come to the same point where we have to default, because default is not the first option, really. It is literally the final option when it's clear that all other doors are closed in your face, because it comes with reputational issues, contraction in growth, welfare losses, just too many problems for us to. And I think Prof. Daku, before he left, said something that even as we are following up with the IMF and what they're doing, there's something, we need to do more. We just don't need to do the basics. So IMF says do A, B, C, D. We do that so that we can check a box so that they can bring in the next round of liquidity. But what we need to do is, beyond fixing the challenges that we have based on the IMF checklist, what else do we really need to do? Because we know our economy, we know the challenges we face. What do we need to do such that post our IMF entanglement going forward, we don't have to repeat the same thing? And I think the student who raised the issue about making investment compulsory, I am more aligned to whether we can have a non-credit earning, let's say, course in personal financial management, which, though not present on your transcript, is something you have to fulfill in order for the school to say, okay, we have groomed a holistic student and so you should go. And I think that is something, if we do and put the modalities in place, we should be able to get at least something. So it's a non-scoring credit, but it is a required credit that you need to fix somewhere so that you have the skills as you move out. That, I think, would create a more holistic student going forward. So those are my takes on that. Thank you.
Okay, I think we've done justice to all the questions for today. And a very big round of applause to our panelists. our finance professors who have immersed you completely in the field of financial and economic resilience in the era of the DDEP and the implications for fintech and digitalization. We want to acknowledge the presence of our audience who are outside this auditorium. They've also been part of us. We are very grateful to all of you who have kept seated up till this time. A round of applause to all of you. So at this point, we'll bring this session to a close, and whilst we rearrange, please give a round of applause again to our panelists. Okay, so we also want to acknowledge the presence of Ms. Angela Forson from CBG. So if you are here, we are very grateful to have you. Thank you so much.
Okay, so to give us the closing remarks, kindly put your hands together for the chairman of this August event.
Thank you. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I think it would be right to say that even for those of us who had absolutely no knowledge about DDP, for those to whom DDP was like any other term we have been taken to school, we can rightly say that the 44th Management Day has done what all the previous 43 achieved, which is to take the gown to town, but not get to town, but allow town to meet us in the middle. So perhaps between Legon and the Central Business District, we'll meet at around 37. And then have a chat, which is what we have done. So we have been told what has happened, how it happened, what transpired after all of these issues. But I think importantly, we have also been told about resilience strategies. We have asked those responsible for policy making to do their bit. We have also told our corporates what to do, but more importantly, we have been schooled on what we as individuals can and should do, like making sure that you keep some dollars under your bed, because perhaps at the time that you want to go and claim what is rightly yours, you may not be able to have access to it. But I think that on a more serious note, this has been a very important enterprise, a very important event. Those of you who perhaps didn't consider finance and accounting as having any role to play, as having any role to play in your lives, have seen why it is that as students, we are constantly making demands of parents, and parents are also, as I was speaking with the chair, that those of us who are sat at the table, which we have parents, and perhaps we should be telling them to calm down on the demands they make of us, which the panel didn't address. So we all have reasons to ask people to be resilient and to be very moderate in their demands. But I think that in the end, the one big lesson we can take away is that there are ways and means that we can use to mitigate the effects of the DDP and other economic measures that are currently trending in the Ghanaian economic space. Because we cannot run away from them, the best we can is to see how we can ensure that it doesn't put us in a situation of no return. So I'd like to thank all those who have made this possible. I'd like to thank all of our presenters. I know that there's going to be a vote of thanks at some point, but let me bring the weight of the Vice-Chancellor to thank those who have come, our ex-deans, our officials, members from the, shall we say, the practitioner and town fraternity who have shared their experiences with us, and also to those of you on this side of the fence, including those who came in very late. I don't understand why you come in late, because you don't have lectures today. We started at 9, but we have to come and wait for you. So be time resilient. It's one of the things that I want you to take from here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'd like to take a vote of thanks, and that will be done by Ms. Erica Boatema Ejukum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As we draw this enlightening Management Day to a close, it is my singular honor to deliver the votes of thanks on behalf of the Dean, faculty, students, staff of the business school. First and foremost, we give thanks to the Almighty God for today. It would not have been possible without His grace. I would like to extend our deepest gratitude to Professor Daniel Ofori, the Provost of the College of Humanities. We acknowledge and appreciate your presence here today. I would like to extend our heartfelt appreciation to the guest speakers, Mr. Philip Amwatin and Mr. Sam Osil-Kwitia, and all our panelists. Your presence here today has added immense value to our event. Your insights and contributions have greatly enriched our discussions, and we are very grateful for your time and expertise. A special thank you to Professor Justice Bauli, the Dean of the University of Ghana Business School. Your unwavering support and commitment to fostering a culture of excellence and innovation within our school has been instrumental in the success of this event. Your leadership continues to inspire us all. Last, but certainly not the least, our most appreciation to the Central Planning Committee, faculty members, staff, administrators, and all who tirelessly worked behind the scenes to ensure the success of today and the Management Week as a whole. Your dedication and passion has led to the success of this event. We are also immensely grateful to our sponsors and partners. Your contribution today and support has made today's event possible and has greatly enhanced the experience. Thank you for believing in the vision of the University of Ghana Business School. To my fellow students, alumni executives, and all alumni here present, I say, are you cool? Thank you for your enthusiastic participation. It is your eagerness to learn and collaborate that makes our school community so special. So as we conclude today's activities, let us carry forward the lessons we've learned about building economic resilience and continue to strive for excellence in everything that we do. Long live University of Ghana, long live UGBS, long live the Come Along administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica, for thanking all our stakeholders present here today. So I have a few announcements for you before we walk out of here. So all the students, as we promised you prior to this event, there's item 13 that is available for everyone who is seated. And you have to remain seated. Please don't go outside. They're going to bring the food inside here for you. So do well to remain seated when we close. Also, for our special guest, our corporate guest, and the panel, we'll be hosting you at the new conference room. All faculty will also be giving you something at the executive hall. And to the staff, kindly go to the registry for your refreshment. I also have another announcement for the students. So the final year students, accounting, marketing, HR, management, should pass by the Confucius Institute for the Career Day program. You've been informed about some of the things you're supposed to take along with you. Do well to talk to Angie or Edwina before you go there. So we are rounding up to a close, and Maria is going to invite. Go ahead.
So please, let's be on our feet as we take the University of Ghana anthem.
Okay, so as we started with an opening prayer, we want to close with a closing prayer. We want to call on Professor Obi Beko to give us the closing prayer. And we'll be doing the photo session after the closing prayer.
Okay, let us pray. Lord, we thank you for helping us since we began till now. We pray in the name of Jesus that all what has been taught, you help us to actualize them. This we thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. So the students, please be seated. They will cater to you. All the 2001 year group alumni, they want to meet. So where's the rep? Who is the rep? Okay, the president is actually here. So do well to Philip. Okay. So converge and meet your rep. And then we'll kindly do the photo session, all faculty and our invited guest.
Ouch! Me didn't know by acid. Nanka me did deka. Ya kwamin kwa me ya kwamin ba. Pressure kwana me daminda. Me didn't know by acid. They spit on my face, they block our way. So yo 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 yo. shira na shiwo me say wo tre mami ya me so me tre ma o na me shira na shiwo me say wo tre mami ya me so me tre ma o me didn't na ba ya sido Why am I born? I'm in Fanche. Don't you want to know what I say? No, but to me on top of the battery. Could you my motor in my fashion? And then I'm from Ramashe. I'm on your man, baby. I'm a through you. See me when I'm in a sheet. I she will. Miss a dream, Miss a dream. I'm in a sheet. I she will. Me didn't know my acid. Why am I born? I'm in Fanche. Going there, money that I want to say. Never be too me on top of the battery. Could you my motor in my fashion? And then I'm from Ramashe. I'm on your man, one of baby. I'm a true Simu and then Navina Shira. Nashio. Miss a trema, Miss a trema. Yeah, Navina Shira. Nashio. Me say what dream I'm me so me dream I'm me didn't know my acid na 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 what's up ya Maria acid na 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 what's up que paluta senge. Now for me second paluta, I had you, inside I had you.